doesn't really matter what camera you're using. And that's one of the questions I get asked the most by far, like what gear do you use? What camera are you using to film your videos? And I always say it doesn't really matter at all. Just get into the process, learn all the basics first with whatever you have right now. And then over time, you can start upgrading your stuff.
Welcome, Leo.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure, an absolute honor, and I'm so excited to have you as one of our first guests.
It's an honor.
And I would like to just briefly introduce you because I think you can speak better about yourself than I can do. So you're Leo Keller, videographer, filmmaker, creator, and as I said, all around nice guy. Like you're an absolutely wonderful human being. You have charm. You have warmth around you, and you're an incredible artist as well. I love following your work on Instagram. I think we met about a year ago, maybe
around a year ago. In Munich too.
Yeah, exactly, in Munich. And I was really inspired by your vibe and by your journey, and we're going to talk about that. But maybe you can say a little bit about yourself to the audience, so that for those few people that do not know you, get to know you a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, I'm Leo. I'm 20. I've been making videos for around 8 years at this point, almost 9, which is crazy to think about.
It is.
Like basically been doing my half of my life. I've been making videos, and yeah, I do a lot of social content, a lot of behind the scenes work, like filmmaking tutorials and stuff like that on my Instagram. But I also do a lot of commercial video work. I work as like a camera operator or DP and editor on a bunch of different like commercial projects, and that's what I'm like really passionate about. But I also love like sharing my knowledge and just talking about filmmaking, talking about tech and tools, and just sharing what I've like learned over the last almost decade at this point. That's insane to think about, but here we are, and I'm super happy to be here and to talk to you about my career, my passion, and just video stuff in general.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we talked about in our pre-briefing is like, what is the goal of this format, right? And I said at some point, like, hey, if we're just having like a 45 to 1 hour long conversation and the cameras just happen to roll, then that's great, because I just enjoyed, just chatting to you, just picking your brain about certain things and seeing your angle on how you do things. And we have so much to talk about, so I hope we will just make it in time. So before we get started, we prepared just a couple of things just to warm up ourselves a little bit. We have a couple of rapid fire questions. So I'm going to start.
All right.
Yeah, let's go. Layers, named or unnamed?
Named.
Coffee, tea, or chaos?
Tea.
One European city that fuels your creativity?
Probably Berlin. I mean, that's like the creative hub here.
One trend you're over?
Film burn transitions.
Okay. One trend you're excited about?
More mixed media and human-made art.
Mm-hmm. Solo creator or team energy?
Most of the time solo creator, but I love working in teams.
Mm-hmm. Early bird or late night creative?
Late night creative. I'm trying to get to an early bird.
Work from home or an office studio?
I mean, I sort of have my office at home, so work from home, I guess.
And to wrap it up, the best creative advice you've ever received?
Create more than you consume.
That was fast. That was really good. Cool. I think we're off to a good start. Leo, I want to start about the most striking thing that occurred to me when talking to you, meeting you, chatting. First of all, when you invite people, like you've been to one of our summits, and you go through a list, okay, this is this person, and okay, Leo, age, and then I look the profile and then I check out what you do. I'm like, wait, I don't have to explain to that person what a C-stand is and what a camera setting is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and it looks better than some of the work. It looks better than some of the studios I work with,
I really appreciate that.
And I've been working, for a little longer than you are old,
Yeah.
which is kind of a crazy thought. So as well as you can say that you worked half your life, I can also say I worked half my life, or
That's
even
really
more, a
cool.
little bit more. So it's like we have some similarities. But what stood out to me was that you're incredibly young, yet you're incredibly professional. So I would like to ask, like, okay, so you said you started editing and working with creative processes, video, film, images at 11?
Yeah, roughly 11 or 12. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I started out with like Lego stop motion animations, and that's how back then pretty much everyone got into making videos. I'm not sure how it is like nowadays. But at the time I was using my like old crappy phone just to like take pictures because video was too bad to use like quality wise. So I kind of had to come up with a way to like get quality video out of the tools I already had back then. So that's when I started like making Lego stop motion animations. And I've always been like interested in camera stuff because my mom works in television, and that's how I kind of got like on sets pretty early on, and
Okay.
like just had that obsession with camera stuff like right from the beginning. I remember like telling my friends I want to be like a cameraman when I'm old, and that was when I was like 5 years old probably. So yeah, and that's how it kind of started making videos. And from time to time, I had the time to make some videos because I was in school still, and it was pretty much only like the afternoons where I kind of had time to work on stuff. But at the same time, like doing stop motion animations takes like a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I was really struggling to like stay consistent and like get the reps in, and that's not something that I was actively thinking about. But like now looking back at it, I was just like having fun and making something that I would be proud of, and that's how I got into the whole video world basically.
But what does fuel you? Like what is it like an itch that you just say I want to create just for the sake of creating and telling a story and crafting images, or what?
Yeah.
Like what was it like an overarching goal like early on, like okay, I need to do this to achieve that?
I've honestly never been goal or target like optimized in my workflow. I've always like I love the process of making films, and that's exactly
Get your hands dirty, actually.
exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what I love doing the most. And if there's a video in the end that I'm proud of, that's really cool. But overall, I just enjoy the whole process, and that's what really counts. And I feel like if you enjoy the process, then your audience and the people who watch the video in the end are also gonna be like noticing that you put a lot of love and like effort into that video. And like the whole process, I love the creative process and like all the different parts that play into making a video or making art in general. And that's so fun, and there's always something new to explore.
So you mentioned that you started off with because the phone was too bad, like, but 9 years ago, like, what was it like 9 years ago?
It was like a
iPhone.
really bad Samsung,
Samsung,
Galaxy
okay.
phone.
Okay. Interesting, because like one of the things that really stands out to me talking to other creatives, you know, making talks, talking online, seeing stuff, you know, from others is that the entry barrier is getting lower and lower and lower.
100%, yeah.
You know, for example, for me, when I finished my studies, I studied communication design, and I wanted to do like a 3D animated short film as my thesis project. So I had to get like all the machines from friends, you know, like different PCs as well as Macs, connected them in the network to render the images out in glorious standard definition, right? So we're not talking HD and not even 4K. And you had to have multiple computers connected to even be able to render that out. Now, what you have in your pocket is faster than everything combined. You had like, what was it, 20 years ago?
It's pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, if you're starting out right now, you don't even have to get a camera. I mean, in the end, it doesn't really matter what camera you're using. And that's one of the questions I get asked the most by far. Like, what gear do you use? What camera are you using to film your videos? And I always say it doesn't really matter at all. Like, just get into the process, learn all the basics first with whatever you have right now. And then over time, you can start upgrading your stuff. And I think that's the fun part about it, to work within your limitations and have limitations. And that's what really helped me grow in the beginning, when I was just starting out, because as a 12-year-old, you don't have the budget to get a big camera or get big lights. So you start by using your phone, a cheap camera maybe, just a desk lamp, and using whatever you have and trying to get the most out of what you're able to use. And it's super fun to do it that way, because when you have so many options, sometimes it's getting too much actually. And just putting yourself into a box with certain amount of tools can help a lot to like fuel you creatively.
So for example, if you mention like the stop motion work, that you did, because as a father of kids as well, like I have two boys, they also love like Lego animation, or seeing Lego animations, but also creating stop motion animation themselves. So how does that, like, did you like craft stories around that, or did you like rather craft shot based stuff, like, hey, I want to do this stunt or this jump or something?
I mean, it's kind of both. Like sometimes I had an idea for a certain shot that I wanted to get and then build a story around that. But at other times I had the story first and then like crafted the image around that. But growing up, I never thought about myself as being creative. Actually, I always like
It's just there.
it's like it's not something that I like am that good at actually. Like I didn't think I was creative until I started making more videos and like finding my creative outlet essentially. And nowadays, I mean, I just see the vision and that image and that final film with like music, sound effects. I see all of that in my head before I even start like writing out a script or like the shot list. And that's like how my creative process is now. I just love like seeing that image and trying to match that as closely as possible. And I don't know how that is with you when you are like doing like 3D stuff, because that's like way more like resource intensive, I feel like.
Mentally, yeah, fantasy wise, yeah. It's funny because you mentioned it, because I have the exact same feeling and sentiment sometimes, and sometimes not. And this is going to be an interesting topic I want to talk to you about as well, because for example, I did like a Star Wars fan film, which I worked
so
for.
good.
Thank you. I worked 5 years on that, and the funny thing is, pretty much I would say 70% of it, 80% of it was like in my mind as a finished QuickTime file. It was like right there, like this is how I imagine it. This like, of course, a couple of jokes were added after that, and after the concept, and we're building the plane as we're taking off in a way, but still 70 to 80% was like a finished video film in my mind.
That's so cool.
So that helps a lot to basically fill in the gaps, and you have like a pretty straightforward plan or path. You just follow along. And this happened to some of my commercial projects as well. When you have a brief and the client wants to have this, that, and that, and you just go like, okay, yeah, and you think about it, and you force yourself into the mood of creating that, rendering that video in your mind, and then you just execute after that. But sometimes you just, I would say maybe this is what it's called, creative block as a video person. Even for 3D, as you say, it's much more complicated, because for video, you go somewhere, you film it, right? We built this set, like we have this concept, like we don't have these colors, this, blah, blah, blah. And then you build it and you film it. Whereas with 3D, there's nothing, right? So you have like an empty, like a blank canvas.
How exciting.
It is exciting, but it's also scary as hell and challenging. And sometimes you just go like, oh, damn, where do I start? So that process starts way earlier, like, because you can create everything, right? So you basically, whereas in real sets, you go like, okay, you go to a set dresser and you're like, hey, we have this and this in storage, we can buy this and that. But technically with 3D, you can just create anything, right? So, so how do you go about that when you don't have the finished film and movie in your mind? How do you tackle the fear of the empty canvas and the fear of creative blackout?
I mean, typically there's always something there already. If I'm working with a brand, there's usually either a like product brief or just a product in general that I'm covering. And most of my ideas come from actually using a product, like being creative with a product. Like I do a lot of sponsored pieces about like filmmaking tools, for example. And that's always something that I try to integrate into my workflow first, and then try to craft up a story around that. Like, how do I use a certain product? How do I like integrate that into my workflow, and then share that in a video? But for other like videos that I'm like doing that are not connected to a certain product, I think I just try to write down as much as possible in random moments. Like I always like come up with certain words, certain themes in my head at the most random times. And then it's super important to just capture those ideas, write them down in your notes app, and then when it's time to create something and make a video about it, you can just go through that list, find something you like, and then go from there. And another thing that I love doing is pulling references on Instagram, for example, or on YouTube, and just trying to curate different artworks and put them together in different playlists or collections. And that also really fuels my creativity, because I always try to like step up my game with every video that I'm doing, and like having those effects or certain style choices like right at your fingertips to like pull from is really inspiring to me personally. And I always try to like not copy, but like steal those ideas in a way that like still make it something new, but you still have the reference to that initial piece, basically.
That's a very good point, because I was about to ask you, like, where do you pull your inspiration from? You know, like, because you do have, there's your style, but also there's a lot of content that you do that looks different, you know, like it can be like a very clean output. It can be like something that is more cinematic, can be more like tutorial-esque, I would say. But still, it looks like Leo. Now, do you get inspiration from movie blockbusters, looks, color grading? Do you get inspiration from other creators, or is it a mix? Or like, how you go about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because I try to actively pull from as many different places and mediums as possible, just to not run into that issue of copying someone like one by one exactly. Because that's something that I personally always find annoying, because I have a couple of videos that are very like have a very distinct style, and there are certain pieces that are being copied by others, like frame by frame, shot by shot, like hundreds of times, which is, I mean, that's kind of flattering in a way that they're trying to like copy my work, but at the same time I feel like that's not how you grow as a person or as a creator, and you always have to like adjust something to make it yours and not try to copy someone else like by the T. But that's why I personally try to pull from as many different places as possible. I love watching Instagram Reels. That's like one place where like a lot of the short form content lives, and where that's the easiest for me to like save references and like collections on Instagram. I love watching YouTube videos. I've always been like more on YouTube than on other platforms like Netflix or like Amazon Prime or whatever. I'm always watching YouTube stuff from like actual people, because I feel like that's way more interesting for me personally as an inspiration than like big blockbusters. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love watching films and watching movies in theaters, but I love when I see people making stuff without like the huge budgets that films have, for example. And then just in general, like I love good design. I love art in general, and trying to pull from like museums, like different color palettes or compositions. That's something that I personally love doing.
That's great. Now, coming back a little bit to your young age, yet extreme high quality and good eye. You know, for me, I did like an internship at actually multiple internships at design studios and film studios and motion graphic studios. Now, one thing that that's really stands out to me and I remember so vividly was like a brief to create something for a German broadcaster, like an intro opener. And I felt very confident because I knew the tool. I knew After Effects like 25 years ago already,
Yeah.
almost. So I felt confident because I knew the tool, yet I didn't have the eye, I must confess. Like the eye to judge, is that a good picture?
Like the taste.
The taste,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, I was creative and I was a designer and I could do all this, but yet my taste and my eye was not developed to the standard that was needed to make something that looks like TV. And I remember the art director was he was like he's a super nice guy. I'm still in contact with him, Timo Schädel, if you're listening. And
Shameless plug.
and he came to me and said like, it's okay, but it doesn't look like TV.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean it doesn't look like TV? Like it's something that is so difficult to express or to phrase, you know, like it doesn't look like TV. It's like, but how does TV look like? Well, it's that little glow, it's that little chromatic aberration, it's the combination of those many little things, right? And it's funny because it took years for me to develop that.
So what did you change?
It was a lot of consuming stuff, but also replicating what I consume to match that. You know, it can be a color grade, it can be a little bit of haze, it can be a little bit of grain, it can be, again, it's a combination of multiple things. It's lighting, it's angles, it's pacing, it's so many things, and it's just not one single thing that does it all of a sudden that makes it look cinematic or makes it look broadcast or makes it look whatever you plug in, right? I grew up with broadcast, right?
Yes.
Like there was no YouTube. Now for me, I watched like linear, non-linear. No, what's it called? Like television.
Linear.
Linear, yeah. Linear television. You know, like switching channels.
Yes.
You know, blah blah blah. You know, you watch a movie.
I still know that.
Exactly, but it's so funny because you just mentioned you grew up watching YouTube, like on demand, like what you want, when you want, at your pace you want. Now, I think that also has like gives you the option to educate your eye, your taste, your mind. But what I'm interested in is like, how did you learn those things, like the technical things, like, hey, how to set up the camera, how to set up lights, 3-point lights, rim lights, all those phrases and all those technical things that you need to know, mixed with the taste and the eye that you have, you know, like, because one of the things that I learned not too long ago, like at least the phrase I learned is learn the things that you cannot learn in tutorials, which I really love. Damn. You know, because
that's really good. Yeah.
You know, like everyone can learn which button to
sure.
push, right? But that goes back to that taste and eye thing.
Yeah.
That you just don't have after watching just one tutorial or even just like 3. It's something that develops over time. Yet you're so young and you already have that, which honestly gives me chills because it's just so crazy, right? Now, how did you go about getting that?
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting to think about it that way, because you can, like, there are endless of tutorials on YouTube where you can learn all the technical aspects, and that's what I did. I learned pretty much everything I know on YouTube.
Self-taught, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was doing, like, when I was watching YouTube videos, I was always like then watching tutorials and like other filmmakers breaking down their work, breaking down their gear, their like techniques and whatever they're doing to make the image look a certain way. But I wasn't actually consuming anything that really shaped my creative eye. It was more of the technical aspects, like you said. And then I think it was only like 3 years ago, probably, when I first noticed that I started developing my own style. And basically the first 5 years of making videos were heavily inspired by others in the creative aspect.
So more like mimicking and then developing into...
Kind of. I always try to make it myself or like make it my own video. But I mean, in the end, you don't have that creative eye yet. So you like really have to focus on what you're seeing and then trying to like replicate that in a way. So what did I actually change 3 or 4 years ago? I think actually that's when I stopped watching tutorials, because I had learned most of the technical aspects. And when I actually had the time to and capacity to watch actual final products and final work of other people, and starting to curate that like creative style, different directions in terms of creativity, um, and just talking to other people. And like I have one person and good friend who I work together with often, Ryan Cow. He is like a filmmaker, DP, commercial editor. And back then I was editing YouTube videos for him when I was like 16. And he now has moved on to like mainly video production stuff instead of YouTube work. But kind of took me with him as like someone who like helps him edit from time to time, and that's how I got into like commercial work and like editing stuff. But he has like one of the best creative eyes I have seen. Like his style is very artsy, but still clean and commercially in a way. And just trying to find people and getting them close to you who kind of mentor you and like help you develop that style over time has helped me personally a lot. And I still want to like have my own style, and Ryan and I have very different styles creatively, but like seeing other people obsessing over those details and obsessing over having like good taste for video and for images, like that has helped me. Like that changed my perspective. Like obsess over the details, obsess over like the creativity and not just the technical aspects. And that's like how I got from like being the tech guy basically and always obsessing over camera settings, over gear. And I mean, I still love that stuff, but like then moving on to more creative choices and freeing your mind. And I mean, in a way that comes from like having the right tools also. Like when you get like a good camera, you have to worry less about like, are you technically able to tell your stories? But then I finally had like the opportunity to spend more time working on the creative aspects, and that's just so much more fun, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about tools and tech, for example, now we talked about the entry barrier that is
Yeah.
lower and lower and lower, things that more powerful, more cheaper or free. So for example, I know you're shooting a lot with your iPhone. You edit a lot on Premiere Mobile, I guess. So how does your workflow differ from like, do you like go about when you are like traveling right now, quickly capturing something, editing, or because your stuff always looks so polished. So can you achieve the same level of polish, or is it like for different scenarios
It is, yeah. I love to have like a certain quality threshold on my account, and when I post something I want to match that like barrier essentially. So for like actual pieces that I post on my account, I try to always
like reels.
Like reels, for example. I use my real professional camera and edit on my Mac instead of like an iPhone. But I've also been really enjoying creating more like short pieces for like stories and like short travel vlogs, for example, that are like only 15, maybe 20 seconds long, just to share a more authentic and real life perspective. And I love just pulling out my iPhone, getting a couple of shots, putting them into Premiere Mobile, editing with like a cool soundtrack, then posting it right away on Instagram and my stories, for example. And
more like BTS style kind of.
Exactly. And that doesn't have to be as polished. It still plays into that creative style and that creative eye that you've developed over time, but it doesn't look as good in terms of like camera quality or like creative choices, because it's really run and gun and that. But that's super fun to have as like an alternative to your everyday content, which has to be polished in a way for me personally, to be happy about it. But then having on the other side that really fun, authentic, and not complicated content helps a lot to like level up in every aspect, basically.
How do you see the Slow, ne? Ja.
Ich trinke kurz ein Stück. In welche Richtung kann ich dich gleich noch ein bisschen fragen, dass du auch noch ein bisschen quatschen kannst?
Nö, ist alles gut.
Ja.
Also es ist.
Soll ja kein Interview jetzt sein. Irgendwie.
Nee, aber es ist, also es soll schon so sein, dass du schon mehr quatschst
Okay,
als ich.
ja,
Das
ja,
ist schon okay.
ja.
One thing that really changed, in my opinion, over the years, might have to do with YouTube as well, or general accessibility, was that I very clearly remember that it was really difficult to pull valuable information from different sources. You know, like there was a lot of gatekeeping, so to say. Oh no, that's my secret sauce. I'm gonna tell you how to create that look. I remember it was like different studios where I interned at. They had like archives, like QuickTime archives, gigabytes, terabytes of stuff they were collecting, downloading, recording just to have some reference.
Yes.
Make it look like this, make it look like that. Now, on how to make it look like that was like a whole nother story, because it was, again, like a lot of people, a lot of artists were gatekeeping that. Oh, no, it's my secret. You know, if I tell the world on how to do that, others may come in and
then I'm not gonna get any more work.
Exactly,
basically.
right?
Yes.
And I remember so vividly like how much of a thing that was. And then it started to change, I don't know, like 15 years ago maybe.
Okay.
I need to look up when it got really active on YouTube, but for example, I remember I did like for Video to Brain, that was a company in Austria. They merged with LinkedIn Learning, and you know they did like learning videos. I did like DVDs, like vintage media, you know.
That's really cool.
Like those discs. So I did like 2 DVDs on After Effects.
Wow.
Where it was like, I think 8 hours each. I went to a recording to Graz in Austria for like a full week, like in a studio, like a little almost like a closet. So you were recording and with a good mic and like proper setup, and actually it was without video. It was just screen recording and me talking into a camera and be like really precise, no ams, no ahs. Like every click has to be really like perfect, yes, and to follow along and almost super clean. And I really liked that. It helped me a lot because, you know, you had to, of course, be really good at what you show. And yes, I was good at it, but also I pushed myself to be better, to be able to have like a really clean training video tutorial. But I also remember that there were, like when I showed something, I had to create projects, but I couldn't show commercial projects. Yeah. So I had to create like fake projects, fake commercials or fake titles or fake whatever, you know, because I was not working too much as a let's say as like a traditional artist. You know, I was more like doing like commissioned design work, which was fine for me. I didn't have time to just do like, oh yeah, let's just create like a 15-second loop that just looks fancy and I can just post it. Again, there was no Instagram back then, you know, so the purpose was completely different. Yeah. Everything had to have like a purpose on why do you create this movie, this trailer, this commercial, whatever. Now creating those fake things, I always remembered like, okay, I want to create this look, but I'm going to show 80%, and the last 20% to get that exactly like, I'm not going to tell. And that completely changed personally on what I want to share and what I want to show, because I realized after a while, like even if I tell someone like every exact step, every plugin, every move, it will still look different if, for example, you do it. Yes. Right? Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. That's how individual we are as artists, as human beings. Now, how do you like? How do you think about this whole sharing? Because again, on one hand, you're an artist, very similar to how I grew up. You know, like I was always part artist, part tech nerd, part educator. Like I loved talking about my stuff to people. Back then, like in very small scale, like not too much on the stage, but rather like in one-to-one or little groups. But then I got really excited about presenting on stage and learned how cool that can be. But that's like a whole different thing, like doing work, but also sharing work in a way that you want to teach people or educate people.
Yeah.
So that's
I love sharing my process with others, and I've always tried to be very open
from the
about.
very start, or
No, I mean it doesn't really make sense to, when you start making videos, to make tutorials about your craft, because you have like, I mean, there's this concept where you basically like have very little knowledge but think you're the very best and like the pro, and it's very dangerous to be at that spot for too long.
should I just interrupt you for a brief
Yeah.
moment? One of my first show reels was like 3 minutes long, and I only had crap in there. It was
Yeah.
like some of it was good, but compared to today, like it was just so bad.
But you think
I thought this is the best
thing ever.
Yeah, 3
Yeah.
minutes. I need to show it the world.
Put a cinematic music piece
15
in
years
the
later,
background.
the reel was 50 seconds. So it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, trying to get from that spot like down to like actually being realistic about your like level of skills, that's when you can start making like tutorials or like showing your process. And I think I started showing my process and talking about it probably around 2 or 3 years ago. My initial first big like growth on Instagram happened 4 years ago. And I was shooting everything on my iPhone. I was actually making videos every single day while going to school for like 200 or 300 days in a row.
Every single day?
Every single day.
Wow.
Yeah. Editing, filming, the whole process. Shot on iPhone, edited on my Mac most of the time, sometimes on iPhone. Premiere Mobile didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
But that really helped me like get the reps in and focus less on like trying to make everything perfect. Because that's something I used to struggle with a lot. I was really trying to like match the quality of the work of others who have been doing it for 4 or 5 years longer than I've been doing video work. So I really tried to focus on just like getting my videos out there, and those were like really short 15-second vlog style videos about my home office, my desk setup, my like camera gear, but without like talking to camera. I was always like showing stuff but not actually teaching or talking about it. And then at some point I realized that doesn't really make me happy anymore. And I just wanted to put more effort into building an actual community on Instagram instead of like chasing virality. It's pretty crazy. I mean, that was right around the time when Instagram Reels really started to like take off on the platform, and literally every single video had like 500,000 views within 24 hours. And that's how I got a lot of the first like batch of followers. So the challenge was to transition more into like meaningful content from then. And I had around 100,000 followers at the time, when I decided to switch my content up to more like filmmaking tutorials and sharing my process, because that's like just what I'm more passionate about than showing my office for the 60th time. Like that's not what really fulfilled me creatively. So it took a long time actually to like transition my community from like the simple vlog style tech content to more filmmaking and more artsy content. But it was really worth it for me personally because I'm way happier, and now I have the opportunity, and that kind of ties back to your question, to like make a final piece that I'm really proud of, like a 15-second spec ad, for example, for a brand, and then post that gets some views, and then break down the whole thing afterwards. And that's how you are able to like turn one content piece that you're really proud of into 5 or 10 content pieces. And you kind of have to play the like the Instagram game and like play into the algorithm to like post more and be consistent and whatever. But that makes it way easier to like have one piece a month, for example, or every other week, and
just
then
milk it,
break that
like,
down. Exactly. And chances are most people are probably not going to see that video anyway. So the more you put it out there, the higher the chance that people are gonna be interested and gonna be seeing that video. I just love making behind the scenes content and sharing my process, because that's what I always found interesting, like watching others' videos, like seeing how they come up with certain setups, like having like shitty rigs and like just stuff that doesn't look pretty behind the camera, but looks so good in front of camera.
Like our set here, like if you just
It's
move
pretty
around,
cool. It's pretty cool.
It's like a very similar approach,
But
right?
that's super fun, and I love showing that you don't need 10, 20 different lights to get a certain look, and that everyone at home can just grab the iPhone, grab one light, maybe good microphone, and just hit record and get something cool out there.
Now, two things I hope I don't forget, because they just stood out to me when we were talking about it, that I wanted to ask you also before, but now I remembered. You mentioned microphone sound.
Yeah.
Your work is so sound heavy,
Yes.
like sound effects, bam,
Glad
cut to the
noticed,
beat.
yeah.
Yeah, of course I noticed. So I think it was George Lucas that said like half of the movie experience is sound design and music, and the audio level or the audio component of your experience. Now, do you do sound first, music first, and then you edit, or is it like a back and forth, a little bit of ping pong, or how do you go about that part?
Kind of depends on the video and the purpose of the video. If I'm doing a behind the scenes piece, that's pretty simple compared to like final videos. I just have my voiceover, cut that up, add some background track, and call it a day. But when I'm working on something that's way more like strategic creatively, I tend to search for music first, try to find a track that works. Sometimes even before shooting, just so like that really changes something while shooting. Like you film differently, you feel the shots differently while you're filming. And I just love obsessing over the sound details. And that's one of my favorite parts, actually, to do the whole sound design process. And sound effects is like something that I usually implement like very last in the process, when I have like the whole video cut up, color grading done. But then it's even more satisfying, because you think you have a pretty decent video, and then you add 10, 15 layers of sound, and you're like, that was actually there. Like the difference in terms of quality by just adding a couple of sounds is huge. And like the potential of a video that doesn't have any sound is also huge. Like just add a couple of sound effects, like 3 layers are maybe enough at times, just to like have the viewer feel something watching the video. And you can have a cool video that looks good, but it doesn't hit as hard compared to when you have good sound in there. And that's so fun.
I love that. Are you... Actually, I should have put that into the rapid fire question. 9x16 or 16x9?
Used to be 9x16. Now I'm going all in on 16x9, actually. And even posting that on Instagram.
I saw that. I had to turn the phone.
Yeah, I feel like actually 16x9 is, for me personally, for some reason, performing better on Instagram actually than posting vertically.
Really?
Which doesn't really make any sense.
Oh, interesting.
But I think it's just because it looks different compared to what everyone else is doing.
But you don't put the rotate your phone kind of
No,
thing in
like
there.
for most of the horizontal pieces I post, I just post it horizontally, and then it fills up like half the screen, maybe.
And you have typography sometimes in there, so you
Yeah.
actually know where you have to...
I mean, sometimes I have that rotate part, but sometimes I just leave it as is and have the UI cover top and bottom, and I have like the tiny film in between. But that works great, and I'm starting to like go more into YouTube content, and I've been working on a couple of things behind the scenes just to get more into long form stuff. Because that's something that I feel like really elevates the like connection to your community. And
And it's coming back. I think
it is.
I read and heard that, long form stuff on YouTube, not like this 1 minute, 2 minute thing, maybe, or even 15-second thing, but opposed more to YouTube, which is like a 15, 20, 30-minute thing, right?
Yeah.
Or even longer.
And I'm all here for it. I mean, I think I wouldn't have been able to learn as quickly if I were to like go all in on long form content back then. I like learned most of my stuff doing short form stuff. Because I didn't have the time next to school to like work on a full 20-minute video.
Why not?
I don't know.
I'm joking.
I don't know. That's what I was thinking. Like, how can everyone make YouTube videos and I can't? But
yeah, it's cool.
And now then I just like did the format that worked for me in my situation. And exactly that's how I was able to make a video every single day, because then the barrier of entry to make a video and to learn is really low. And I tried to like try a new effect every single day and like a new style or a new transition or whatever. And like that's exactly like do as many content pieces as possible, especially when you're starting out. And then over time you can like build that creative eye and like go more into longer videos if you want to. I mean, I still love working on shorter videos as well, because it's really challenging to try to fit a whole story into 15 seconds.
Exactly. It's
and
even
that's
more difficult.
A whole part of the fun to like be able to work within your limitations. But you always have to like change up your workflows and not be too confident in and too comfortable in what you're doing, because then you won't grow creatively anymore.
It's funny because one thing that I set out as a goal for this year is also to do more longer form content. I should have taken care a bit more of my YouTube account in the past year, but I was focusing very much on short form stuff. Like when, for example, my work at Adobe, when there's a new feature out, for After Effects, for example, a couple of days ago I posted a new reel. It's so difficult to put it into a 1 minute video.
Yeah.
And it takes so long. It takes hours, sometimes days. You write, you record, you edit, post-production, captioning, thumbnails, all that process. I mean, it's a process. Sometimes I'm pretty sure that for the same length of production, I probably would have less of a headache creating a 15-minute tutorial about the exact same feature.
Interesting.
In more detail, yet not so snappy in 1 minute.
Yeah.
To feed the algorithm for, like no one's going to watch a 15-minute tutorial on Instagram opposed to maybe on YouTube, right? So at least that's my goal. I'm trying to do more like long form tutorials showing features, not just like in a very snappy way, but also more in like an educative way of.
Yeah. So how do you decide if you want to do like, or if you want to highlight a certain feature in a short or in a long video? Like, what's your process behind that? Or does it just like you feel like 1 minute isn't enough to cover a certain topic, or do you just do both? Or what's your process behind that?
That's an interesting question because honestly, there's like multiple layers to that. Of course, in my job at Adobe, I want to highlight things. I have to highlight things in a way, of course, but also like as evangelists, we have to be authentic, right? We have to be genuine about what we talk about. I would never say, oh, this is cool, try it out, and then turn around, switch the camera off and say like, oh, this is actually bad.
Yeah.
If I don't like something, I'm not talking about it, right?
I mean, you're even more like obsessed and nerdy about certain features in real life than you are in videos. I feel like that's a good thing.
Exactly, because everything I show, like you can go through every video on my Instagram feed, and everything that I show, I'm passionately about talking about it, right? I'm like, I would just call you up and say like, hey Leo, you have to try out this feature. This is really, really cool, and not because Adobe is, taking care of my payroll, right? But because I genuinely like this feature, because I genuinely think that this is going to help another creative achieve a certain goal. Now, yes, in a minute, it's more like, it should not be a commercial. I don't want it to be like a commercial, but technically it's like a teaser, right?
Yeah.
It's showing the surface of something. Now, if you want to go deeper, 1 minute is not enough. Sometimes even 15 minutes is not enough. So like on a genuine level, to help people achieve something that they couldn't achieve before or took longer to achieve, that's something where I go like, okay, I wanna dedicate that production time to create a longer tutorial. For people to understand. Like one of my most favorite tutorials, or most loved tutorials online on YouTube, is the content aware fill stuff, where you could select an area and that was before AI technically. AI is like a broad term. Maybe you can talk a little bit about AI too as well. But what I mean by that is that was something that helped people to do things that they could not envision doing, like to cut something out and fill it back in. And I had like the loveliest comments, and this really fuels me, because yes, I love creating and I love doing stuff for the sake of it, for the process. So I have the same itch, I have the same desire and drive to do that. But sometimes that gets a little bit tiring, like after working for 20 years in that field, almost every production or almost every commercial and the render that you do becomes like a blur a little bit. And at one point when you achieve a lot, it just becomes not less valuable, but less intensive, I would say. But what changed was, for me personally, the reactions that I received from people like you or from others, where you talk to a community and we present and they tell you, wow, I didn't know that fueled me to create this or inspired me. And this is so much more valuable, I think, to touch people on that level. And I think that's true also for like tutorials that you do, or
I think that's a part that's getting like way more popular now, trying to focus more on the human connection again.
Especially also because of AI, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's so much trash content out there,
100%,
and so much AI slop that's like basically polluting the feed of your social media platforms, and just trying to be human again and sharing your authentic self and truly like genuinely connecting with others, and not just making content for the sake of making content to get a certain financial outcome, for example. I think that's making a huge comeback right now. And that's also why long form content is getting more popular again, because it's just way easier to share your authentic self in longer videos, and also way harder for AI, for example, to replicate human behavior at like longer length. But also in-person stuff like events, workshops in person are making a huge comeback right now. And I love seeing that we are understanding that, I mean, social content is cool and like posting stuff on there and like maybe interacting from time to time. But it doesn't fulfill you personally when you don't have that true human connection to other people. And that's something that I learned like the last few years, when I started working together more with other people, because before that I was always doing stuff on my own and I didn't have friends who were into cameras. So I was always trying to make stuff by myself, and that worked well for that time. But now I just really value like connections to other people, just being able to call someone up and say, hey, what do you think about this? Can you give me some feedback or input on that? And it's so cool to meet like-minded people and share that passion with them. And we are in the end all doing the same thing, but like we're all in different places and doing it differently. But that's what's so exciting about it.
How do you think because AI is here to stay, right? I mean, you can hate it or love it, and it's okay to have different feelings about it. But I mean, one thing is for sure, that it's here to stay. How do you feel it is going to change creative processes, the creative landscape, and or if it's going to change at all, or like, what is your take on that?
I mean, I'm I make videos because I love making videos and I
Right.
love the process, and I love getting my hands dirty making a
Mm.
video and failing again, trying to get to a certain look, and then at one point nailing that look.
Mhm.
And I love the process behind that. So I've always been very skeptical of AI processes in general. But I mean, it's here to stay, so we have to learn to use it to our advantage. And personally, I mean, there are so many cool tools out there that help you improve the quality of your work using AI, and that's why I'm open to it. I don't like AI when it's trying to replace human made art, or in a way trying to replicate humans without any intention behind it.
Mhm.
That's what I really dislike. But I mean, there are tools like Adobe Firefly boards, for example, that I just a few days ago started using for the first time on a
Oh, wow.
project, to work on a transition, actually, for a content piece that I'm shooting right now. Pretty big project, actually. Definitely proud of that. I think it's probably out by the time you're watching this podcast. But I had this idea to have a transition between a top-down shot of a desk to a top-down shot of me laying on the floor without any ideas, throwing up a ball in the air and like just laying on the floor. And the way I was like trying to think about it was having different pieces of paper on that table and then transitioning through that paper into the other shot. So what I ended up doing was grabbing a still from the first of from the shot I want to transition into, grabbing that still, putting it into Adobe Firefly boards, and then changing that image into like a blueprint, hand-drawn style image, because I really can't draw. I would love to be able to draw, but I just can't. And I probably could have asked someone to draw that for me, but then again, I didn't have the time and the resources to do that. So being able to like put that into Adobe Firefly and have like that sketch that I'm able to modify in Lightroom and Photoshop afterwards to make it really like in the style that I'm trying to get it. And then printing that out on paper, filming the actual shot,
Mm-hmm.
and then having that transition into the other one by like transforming the first shot and having a match cut of the two. That's really fun. And I'm starting to do more of that lately. And that's really fun and such a good way to like be open to AI. But still I always prefer doing it the manual way, if I can and if I have the time.
But I mean, the process sounds super interesting that you just explained. And surprise, it's not a one-click solution that you just explained, right? I mean, hey, surprise, it's a lot of work. And I think that's also my personal opinion, you know, like, and I agree with what you said 100% with AI slop and just, you know, crap being put out about where there's no creative intent. There's no, just like, actually you can create something with just a push of a button, which looks fairly decent. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. But then again, what is the intent behind that? Now, I agree that there's way too much slop out there that does not have any creative artistic value. And I think that's the problem. I think the problem is not that there is AI, because what I feel like AI is it's such a heavy, it becomes such a heavy word. Like the connotation with AI becomes either so negative or so emotionally loaded, whereas technically it's just machine learning, right? It's computer generated. Now, if you look back, for example, a couple of years ago, let's say 10, 15 years ago, or even 20 years ago, computer aided design, you know, CAD, right? That was almost like a quality stamp, you know, like, oh, it is computer aided design. It is laser cut. It is machine milled, right? It's almost like a in German there's a Gütesiegel, you know, it's like a word, you know, it's almost like a badge of quality, right? Because yes, there was a human behind it, but it's also machine assisted with a human intent. Now, with AI, we tend to forget that it is a tool, and it should be used as a tool, whereas a human is driving the tool to create something. Now, yes, it is a very smart tool. It can create something with a push of a button. Is that good? No, probably not. Now, I think we should go back to seeing it as a tool, almost childlike. You know, like, for example, if I would go back in time 5 years, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and then I would show you something that we can achieve, like a transition, for example, what you described. You just would go like, this is sorcery, this is nuts. What is this wizardry? Like, I want to have that, right? Not calling it AI, just calling that is like a tool that can do this.
Yeah.
When you start looking at it as a tool that needs input and human intent, then I think it becomes like a whole different thing. Because, for example, when we're going back to the 3D part, you know, that I love to do, every 3D render usually goes through Photoshop, After Effects. You touch it up, you add grain, you add imperfections just to make it more intentful, more designed, and more created, instead of, because every 3D render is just too perfect. There's no camera lens and camera that is as perfect as a 3D render. Now, the same is in some extent true for a camera, right? Everything that you film goes through a post-production process. Yep. You stabilize it, you color grade it, you add VFX to that. That's all computer generated. So technically, like, where do you draw the line between AI and computer aided, right? And as you said, there's so many tools that help you get results faster, like the roto brush, or now it's object mask in Premiere, or even in After Effects. You know, so those things are also AI, but they're
help more assistive than generative.
Exactly. But you can also have help with generative AI, you know, if there is like a very specific intent behind that. Now, again, just to click one button and to output like a copy machine, like bam, 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 page by page and frame by frame. No, probably not. You should use it as a tool where you actually, as a layer of a multi-step process, like you described.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think what I don't like about the whole AI process is, or why I don't value the result as much as I would something that is manually crafted, is that it's often based purely on luck, what you get. And that also ties back to developing that creative eye and that like taste and creative style, which you're basically just giving up for AI to create something based on other things you input or your prompt or whatever it is that it's working with. And I feel like that's really harming your creative vision and your creative style and your creative eye and the development of that. And my fear is that people who are just getting into video work are relying on AI too much and therefore shaping their creative eye in a way that isn't as personal as it could have been if you were just pulling from different places instead of focusing on AI. And that's why I always try to like preach, always like get your hands dirty first and learn the manual process and really find the value in that process and enjoy the journey of creating something and not trying to get to that final piece as fast as possible. And that's what I feel like a lot of people are trying to do now, that they are looking for shortcuts to get to the final image. And that's why I don't like AI for those instances. But I mean, if you implement it in your workflow in a way that you feel like is morally acceptable for you personally, that's fine. I am just way more proud of my work if I know that I got my hands dirty.
Rightly so. Absolutely. Now, to almost wrap it up, like, where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 5 years? What do you want to achieve? Looking at your impressive vita and your reels and everything, like what's next?
There are many different things I'm thinking about. First of all, I love teaching. I love sharing my knowledge, and I want to do more in-person workshops because I've gotten really good feedback on that in the past, and just share my skills with others who are just starting out, because that's something that I would have loved back then when I started. I had to pull from all those different places on YouTube with a lot of crappy content out there. And I just want to create a resource for new creators and advanced creators to really level up their skills, whether that's in person or like in some sort of call or workshop. I just don't want to put something out there that's a generic online course, like, hey, buy my course. And I'm just not a fan of that.
Yeah.
So I want to create something that's true to myself and to my values to share my skills with others. That's one thing I want to focus on. The other part is like creatively. I love like being creative, coming up with stories and finding ways to tell those stories in the most interesting way possible visually. So I really want to go more into creative direction, and also step more behind the camera again. And I mean, doing content, you're often like playing all the different roles on set and being in front of camera, like you're doing it all. And I want to be able to focus more on taking a step back, being behind camera, and just creating wonderful campaigns and projects that I'm proud of. And that's something that I'm doing more of lately, and that I want to focus even more on going forward.
And maybe creating a movie.
Maybe in the long run. I don't know. Maybe.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it.
What should it be about?
The creative journey of a young man. Maybe
That's
like how to like one of the things that really I find difficult as a father is the tech and consuming stuff, how to balance it in a mindful way, not like, because kids, of course, as soon as you show them an iPhone or an iPad or a computer screen, and oh wow, this is great, you can create something, but also you can consume something. So you always have to balance consumption and bad consumption. Like there's quality consumption, bad consumption, with the meaningful usage of that device, right? I think that's something that is super tricky right now, and I believe it's going to be even trickier 2, 3, 5 years from now.
Yeah. How are you doing that right now, or how are you planning to share that gift of being creative with your kids in the long run?
It's a mix of being strict and loose, like balancing. Yes, you can play. Yes, you can draw, and he loves editing with Primo Mobile, for example. He likes to put stuff like in order and add effects, add text, and add music and sound. So he already has that, the older one, in him. So
how old is he?
12.
Okay, yeah. Right when I started.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I'm trying like, okay, what is the secret sauce? Like, how can you become Leo 2.0? No, they should be whatever they want to be, right? But yet you it's so tricky to navigate it. It's like a super thin line. Not too little, not too much. You don't want to push them. They should discover it by themselves. So it's a mix of having a lot of parental controls, screen time limits, of course, but also talk to them. Lead with good example, which is super difficult if your job is being on Instagram and creating content and having your devices with you. So in a way, you're a bad example, but you try to be mindful and explain things on why it is there, and communicate openly about the risks and the benefits. I can let you know if I figured it out. I'm still figuring it out.
I would love to hear that, and compare it to the way that I started. And I mean, I'm really grateful that I was able to have access to tools like YouTube to watch tutorials, to learn video stuff, because otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here right now with you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's really important to like limit that and I used to be in a spot where I was probably 2 or 3 years into my like creative journey, when I didn't have any motivation or inspiration to create anything because I was watching so much stuff on YouTube and watching so many wonderfully crafted videos out there, that it just felt like I wouldn't be able to match that quality standard if I were to make a video myself. So I think it's really important, kind of going back to what I said in the rapid fire section, where just try to create more than you consume and find that balance as early as possible, and just experiment with your tools and don't try to force progress, but take the time to actually learn your craft and learn to enjoy your craft and the process behind it, because that's what's going to be helping you stay consistent and be happy in the long run.
I love that. And I think with create more than you consume, I think this is a good wrap for this episode. Leo, thank you so much for being here with us. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it felt natural. It's not like cameras are rolling or
absolutely
anything.
And if it helps anyone out there in the creative field, in the community, then I think we made it. Absolutely. So thanks so much again.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.